Hi friends, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. Here's what we're discussing today. When I was a kid, there were days, hard as this is to believe, that I disobeyed. I didn't do everything that I was supposed to do. And my parents spanked me. In fact, once, my Aunt Naoma, who was a very tall, red-headed person with the red-headed temperament, I forget exactly what it was that I did, but she decided she was going to spank me. We were at her house, and her house was only about 2 houses away from my grandmother's house. And so I let out that front door and ran to my grandmother's house and locked that front door. I really wish I'd locked the back door too. I think it made it a lot worse. But, that's the kind of thing that children used to get when in the 1950s and 60s. When you were bad, you were disciplined. But nobody left a welt. Nobody left a bruise. It was a couple of swats across the hind end, and that was all there was to it. I was never abused as a child. None of my brothers or sisters were ever abused as a child. But we were corrected with corporal discipline, and that happens. And it happened then, and there are still families in which that happens, and that's okay. What's not okay is to cause physical injury to a child. When I worked as a respiratory therapist, I saw, I would say, at least 4 children who were badly abused. 2 of them actually died, both of them from head injuries, as a result of physical abuse suffered at the hands of a boyfriend. It was never the father, it was always the boyfriend of the mother, and not the biological father of the child. It has always been a source of great frustration to me that in those instances we were not able to sort of pull off a miracle and save a child's life. But unfortunately, the brain is very fragile. The perfusion in the brain is very fragile, and sometimes you just can't do very much about that. So having seen that up close and personal, I want to give you a trigger warning here. We're going to listen to some of the direct testimony of Kayla Montgomery. And Kayla Montgomery was the stepmother of Harmony Montgomery and was physically present when the child was injured and abused. And the testimony is difficult to watch, but there are some interesting things wrapped up in it from a legal perspective that I want to discuss. Feel free to move forward through the testimony if you don't want to listen to the details, which are, to be quite frank, awful. So today I'm going to do the prosecution's direct of Kayla, and then later I will do the cross-examination by the defense counsel. So with that little advisory, let me start by suggesting that the way this prosecution opens up with the testimony of Kayla Montgomery is to prove up the fact that she's a liar. Now, you are probably wondering what possible good that can have for the state, since the state is relying almost exclusively on her testimony to establish that Adam Montgomery killed his daughter. The reason that you do that, the reason that you start with the bad stuff first and get it out of the way, is so that the first question the defense asks on the cross-examination isn't, well, it's really funny that the prosecution didn't ask you about, you being convicted of perjury. You were convicted of perjury, right? Right. And it was for lying about the details of this case, right? Yeah. And of course, what the jury hears last sometimes is most important, but sometimes what the jury hears first is also important. The reason that it's important to do that is because it helps establish that, she lied previously, but now she is telling the truth, and she takes, responsibility for what she did. So let's listen to a little bit of that.
Kayla, can you begin by stating and spelling your full name for the record?
My name is Kayla Montgomery, Kayla Montgomery.
And how old are you, Kayla?
33.
Where do you currently live?
I am in the correctional facility for women's in Concord, New Hampshire,
How long have you been there?
for over a year.
Kayla, why are you currently incarcerated?
For perjury, for lying to the jury about the whereabouts of where I was and where Harmony was.
And when you say lying to the jury, was that the grand jury?
Yes.
Did you also lie to the police?
Yes.
Why'd you do that?
Because I was scared, and I was told by Adam to stick with that story, that I got dropped off at work at Dunkin' Donuts, where I no longer worked at that time, and to say that he was bringing Harmony to meet her mother, Crystal, and that he dropped her off with her. And then when he came pick me up from work, which I was not working there at the time, he didn't have her in the car, which that was a lie.
That story that you just told, that was what you told the grand jury?
Yes.
It's what you told the police?
Yes.
And was that in fact what happened?
No.
You said you've been sentenced for lying.
Yes.
You're living at the prison. Do you understand the consequences of providing false testimony?
Yes.
And since those lies, since your time in prison, have you sat down with investigators? Have you sat down with the Attorney General's office and provided additional statements?
Yes.
How many times?
About 4 times.
How many hours?
A couple hours at a time when they've came to see me, or I've gone out to the office to meet with them.
Did you reach a plea agreement with the state?
Yes.
And that was on the perjury charges.
Yes.
Other charges were dismissed, is that right?
Yes.
The story that you just told about the defendant dropping Harmony off with Crystal, who came up with that story?
Adam.
Why did you stick to it?
Because I was scared for myself and my children that are also Adam's, and for him, because I didn't want anybody to get in trouble, and I was scared.
It's interesting to me that the defense allowed them to do so many leading questions in that opening little introduction there. Generally speaking, those should have been much more open-ended questions, but with a witness of her educational status, I doubt she's probably completed high school, or if she's completed high school, she certainly was not at the top of her class. And as a result of that, I think sometimes the other side, just in order to keep from really honking off the jury, doesn't object to a lot of leading questions over stuff that doesn't matter. And this simply is a way for the prosecution to admit that she's a liar, and that's not hurting the defense at this point. So now, having established that she has lied, that she has been convicted of lying, that she is in prison in New Hampshire because she was convicted of lying, and she reached a plea deal with the state. Now we're going to get into the testimony of some of the abuse. And of course, you'll remember I showed the clip from Kevin Montgomery, who was the uncle of Adam Montgomery, where he talked about how the child was so terribly injured. And now we're going to get yet another story about how this injury occurred. And this one will come in from Kayla, who will describe 2 different stories that Adam told her. And just to be clear, this relates to the injury to the eye, the big black eye that Harmony had. and how she might have obtained that.
So the first day you saw it, when it was red, really red, how did you see that? Where were you?
I came home from work, and I saw her face, and it was red, and I was told that.
And let me stop you there. You came home from work.
Yeah.
So this would have been around 2 p.m.?
Yeah.
Did you have an understanding of where Harmony had been that day?
Yes.
And tell us where that was.
She was at home at Guilford Street
Who was she at home with?
with Adam and Uncle Kevin and Seamus and Declan.
And when you got home, when you saw this injury, the redness to Harmony's eye, did you ask the defendant what happened to her?
Yes.
What did he tell you?
That her and Seamus were playing, and Seamus hit her in the face with the lightsaber by accident.
After you heard that confrontation between the defendant and Kevin, did you confront the defendant?
Yes, I asked him.
And at that point, did he tell you a new story about this injury to Harmony's eye?
No, it was the same. Well, yeah, he ended up telling me after
What was the new story he told you?
that he ended up hitting her in the face because she covered our son's mouth because he was crying and he was in the bathroom. He went to the bathroom. Declan was crying, and Harmony had her hand over his mouth, and he came out of the bathroom and saw that, and his lips were blue, or purple blue, and he hit her.
Did he describe how he hit her?
He smacked her in the face.
Did he acknowledge causing that injury to her?
Yes.
So it would seem, at least if you credit this testimony, and I'm not saying you have to, I'm just saying if you credit this testimony, it certainly appears that Adam Montgomery had a very short fuse. And if you believe that a toddler of Harmony Montgomery's size and stature could smother a child, I think that, and actually saw, cyanosis, blue coloring on the lips, that's ridiculous. It's a terrible, terrible thing to suggest that this child was somehow malicious and was trying to hurt her brother. So, especially in view of the testimony from Crystal Sorey, who said she enjoyed being a big sister to her own little brother. It's amazing to me that Adam Montgomery would offer this up as an excuse for using his fists on a child and blackening her eye. But far and away, that was not the worst of what happened. We're now going to listen to a clip from the same series of testimony here where she talks about what happened on the way to Burger King. Here's the important thing to notice about this. The first thing is that they are going to a methadone clinic. So obviously they both have a heroin addiction and they are seeking treatment through methadone to come off of the heroin, or maybe they're just seeking methadone to make it easier to get high. I don't know which of those would be the case, but certainly with respect to the sort of the general character of both Kayla Montgomery and Adam Montgomery, they're both drug addicts.
And before you left for the methadone clinic, did Harmony have an accident?
Yes.
And what did the defendant do before you went to the methadone clinic? What did the defendant do to Harmony after that accident?
He was yelling and screaming at her and punching her in the head.
How did she react to that?
She was crying.
You mentioned the methadone clinic. Was that Habit Opco?
Yes.
And what did you do at the methadone clinic that morning?
Got my dose of methadone, and Adam got his also.
And do you remember who went in first?
No, I don't remember who went first.
Kayla, can you tell the jurors what happened when Adam returned to the vehicle after his methadone treatment?
When Adam came back to the vehicle, he could smell urine, and he started yelling at Harmony and kept hitting her in the head repetitively.
Where were you when he smelt that accident? Where was the vehicle when he smelt that accident?
In front of the methadone clinic.
Did you discuss going somewhere with him at any point that morning? Going to get food?
Yes. I asked to go to Burger King.
You asked to go to Burger King.
Yes.
And so at some point, did he begin driving the vehicle?
Yes.
Was that before or after he repeatedly struck Harmony?
After.
What was Harmony doing at that point when he started driving the vehicle?
She was crying a lot.
She was crying a lot.
Yeah. And she was making a weird noise.
Was she saying anything?
No.
And Kayla, I want you to walk the jurors through in as much detail as you can what happened on your route from Habit Opco to that Burger King.
Adam was getting really angry from Harmony peeing in the car, and he repetitively kept punching her on the way to Burger King, and there were a couple red lights, and when we were at red lights, he would go over the driver's seat, like in between the passenger seat, and he was just punching her repetitively in the head.
As I'm watching this, I'm thinking, Kayla, why aren't you doing something? You're sitting next to a grown man who is reaching over the seat and punching a child in the face, and you are doing nothing. Apparently, you're saying nothing. You are just sitting there. Now, maybe she's afraid. Maybe she's afraid he'll start hurting her children. Maybe she's afraid that he will start hurting her. I don't know. But I would hope that anyone would have the courage to stand up for a small child in that situation. The fact that she didn't, and the fact that she escaped prosecution for that, while only getting a de minimis conviction for perjury, is something I think that might very well sit badly with a set of jurors. I don't know. Would it keep Adam Montgomery from being convicted? Probably not. Because if you credit that testimony, and you can see it's clearly upsetting to her that she's having to recall this, it has the ring of truth to it. And I think it probably is true as to what happened in that line, or in that trip up to Burger King. So that's what I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below, or you can always email me at the address above. If you have the opportunity today, take a moment, do something nice for somebody, make their day, and then catch me down here at the beach again next time. I try very hard not to be like all those other YouTubers who open up every video by asking you to subscribe before you've even seen the content. But now that you've gone a few minutes into the content, if you find this interesting and helpful, please subscribe. I'd consider it a personal favor. If you like this video, here are a few others you might try, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a terrific day, guys.